Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy Heroes. This is Grand Arena, the first match of Season 33, a 3v3 season. We are starting this one off in Kyber 2. We climbed up from Kyber 3 last week. We went 3-0. I do highly recommend the round 3 match from last week. I put the video up a couple days ago. We've been slow on putting some videos out. I'm sorry about that. We've been pretty busy IRL, but that last match, great strategy, good testing, really tough defense to find a way through, and some nice creative counters that worked out great, and tested out some of the newer marquee releases. Just find it a pretty valuable video. I don't normally single out particular matches of mine as being worth watching. That one I do think is. But before we get started, we're going to do a quick look back at last week, or the last week of the previous season, and just do a quick look at the defense. We'll try and do this as fast as possible. For round 1 and round 2, my opponents were able to one-shot my defenses. I actually made them pretty easy because based on the offenses in their Grand Arena history, I expected them to to clear my defense very quickly. So I just decided to make it easier, give myself some more weapons for offense, and to be able to do some testing. Because I think this guy had Lord Vader, or maybe it was some of my opponents had Lord Vader, and I wanted to make sure I had the counters for them. This guy did have the Profundity, used his to clear mine, Malevolence Negotiator, and then did not have a fleet to clear my Chimera. You could also use Tarkin with this if you have Sith Eternal Emperor. For my gear levels, I like the Chimera. For round 2, similar results. This guy one-shots my defense. Nothing really surprising here, does well. And the same deal happens. My opponent fails to full clear me, and this is the difference of having the Profundity. No one was able to full clear me last season, and since I have had the Profundity. Round 3 here, you can see this one with the banner total is different than the others. I suspect it's because my opponent just didn't plan out his counters well, or expected some things to go a little differently. I've actually am a little surprised at how it went. That's kind of overkill. I don't think I would have done that. But you can see he ends up stalling out up against my Mon Mothma, which is a nice surprise. This Traya team losing to Mon Mothma, that's a solid Traya team. And I'm kind of surprised by that result. And with that preloaded turn meter after, he was not able to clear that team, and I was able to get a nice win. Looking at this week's bracket, we're not going to show everybody on screen, but it'll give a big overview. If we try to show everyone on screen, it just becomes unreadable. So just having the 4, actually let me switch to the right opponent. My opponent this round is Surprise. You can see he is a 4 GL player. Everyone is, most everyone is 6 GLs. There's a couple 4s, a couple 5s, but everyone else is basically at 6 except for me, and I'm always the weird one with 2 GLs. Even in Kyber 3, that is pretty rare to see. Relic units, not terrifying. There's one guy here at 171, but this 110 to 120 range is kind of what we're seeing. My depth, though, is not as advantageous as I normally see it. Now we are seeing a bunch of other players at about 170-ish or higher. There's a couple 150s off screen. The 6-dot mods, this is actually nice to see. Mod quality, I'm the best of the round. Usually don't see that in Kyber 2. I think I got into a matchup here with a lot of players who were in Kyber 3 and climbed up into Kyber 2. This is a fairly manageable Kyber 2 round, and I might be able to get a couple victories here. We'll see. Datacron wise, we had the last set expired, so I'm down to 2. The Melgus one expired. Two players here have level I have 3 level 9 Datacrons. The rest are 1 or 0. With this current set, even though I don't have Jabba and no one in this bracket has Jabba, here's a look at the GLs that they have. You do need to just develop the Datacrons at least to level 3. If you do have any undeveloped data, we'll talk about this throughout the match. If you don't have, or if you do have Datacrons that are undeveloped from last round, you should level some up for light side, because what we'll see in the match is I just don't have enough light side Datacrons, and this current set is all dark side. So you should, even though they're not going to be faction specific in most cases, you do want to put at least level 3 on light side or dark side to get that benefit at a minimum. Although if you have Executor, you can at least use the bounty hunter side ones a little bit. If you're an SLKR player, you're going to be fine with the first order ones. I don't have SLKR, I have a single first order. We'll get into that stuff. 2 players without Melgus, one is unlocked. The rest are at relics. Relic 7 there's a couple relic 5s. We have everybody but one player has a Radis ready to go, but we'll just skip down here. It looks like only 2 players don't have the Profundity, which is probably what you want to be seeing for Kyber 2. Everyone's got Star Killer. Everyone has most of what they should have. In terms of Dash Amis, only 2 of us don't have it. For me, it's just not a difference maker. I am the only player with the Savage Ami, and I do recommend that one. That's a solid Ami. And then here, this is about right. Pay attention to Moff Gideon here at 301 speed. We'll be looking at that in a second. Let's move on. Let's take a look at my opponent a little bit more in depth. We're going to do the Hotbot and then look at his speed characters zoomed in a little bit. With the Hotbot here, you see a decent amount of green on my side, which is a good sign. I'm in the middle of switching guilds, so this is no longer relevant. I've been hanging out in a starter guild to work on a couple prestigious quests because I want to be a Jedi Master and whatever the rebel prestigious quest is called. Moving down below here, this is the guild that my alt account is in, helping them out for graciously taking care of my alt account for a while, which is kind of abandoned. I'm still going to use it for testing, but I'm not really using it in the same way, which is why you haven't seen content from that account. But I think we'll do a couple recaps before shifting to another mode with it. With clears and undersizes, not bad. You can see the clears are low, but the undersizes aren't terrible. Top 80, yeah, that stuff's fine. Zetas are very low, especially for being a 4GL player. Omicrons are fine. We have big advantages on mods. Relic distribution is pretty good, not too unlike my own. So no major advantages there, although he has double the Relic 8s as me. His GLs are fine. These key characters, you can see no Swallow. We will have an interesting match with Swallow. I've already recorded this. I'm just doing the audio after the fact. Just a quick look. Let's move on to some others. Taking a look here at the footage. So with my opponent, Surprise, take a quick look. We'll look at his roster and organize it by speed. Most of it we've already seen. But it's the Moff Gideon Shaak Ti split. So you can see he's got 14 300 plus speed characters, which is about in line with my own account. Nothing terrifying. We've gone up against far scarier accounts when it comes to mods. He attacked first. He's going to end up attacking more throughout this match. You'll see most of it's going to happen after we wrap up though, but he's going to do some of it while we're still attacking. I'd pay attention to this territory in particular, that Bossk team has the new set of Datacrons. The rest of this are the old Datacrons or the Dash Vader set. I'm just going to click on this Datacron and show which one has been set on that team. We got the Retribution and the turn meter on the level 3 ability. And then if you haven't changed this territory, change it, I guess, because I I almost forgot to put the Profundity on the 3v3 presets. So with his, you can see some weird stuff here. We got Melgus, we got Starkiller, but that Orsing team's a little wonky. Over here down below, this Cad Bane Embo team, it's technically a Hut Cartel team. It's a little weird. He's moving towards Jabba very quickly. Like, he should have Jabba probably around the same time I get Jabba. We're going to start with Lord Vader. Let's move to the other screen, because I know if I don't do it now, we're going to forget about it later. So I thought long and hard about this. Did I want to use JMK to counter Lord Vader, or did I want to attempt Fennec? And ultimately, I decided I wanted to use Fennec, mostly because I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand where this team stands. Is it ready to go or not? And JMK was a team that I'd like to use up against the Melgus. Just this audio, I think it's a little loud, but you can see we're doing all right. I think I probably should have used the basic, but I kept going with the armor shred, and maybe it was the right call because of how long it that wasn't even enough damage. Maybe I need to increase relic. I mean, I definitely should increase relics on Fennec. I think with relics on Mando and Greef, we would have been fine. We probably would have stood up a little bit longer, and Fennec could have gotten through better, but I'm pretty happy with that result, considering those were 2 Gear 12 characters. I mean, it is a easier version. We're not going up against scary Datacrons, so it worked out. Now, Qui-Gon here. This is my preferred counter. I've tried a bunch of different things in 3v3. Don't worry, I'll realize. I'll realize. Yeah. What I'm thinking. Oh, that was happening late. A different match. I thought I clicked on the Vader Datacron. I do that sometimes in this match. I make a mistake here. I was thinking maybe increase the cooldown, because I'm used to my opponent's Anakin going before my characters do, which didn't happen this time. So I marked him, and it was nonsense. I was hoping that this would be enough, and we were just short. It's fine. Next time, I'll just go after Qui-Gon. I just didn't want Anakin to do his AoE ability after I'd taken Qui-Gon out. That was my big concern. And I think I just overthought it. It's fine. It doesn't make any meaningful change. The rest of this, we do. So this new team, I think I do some testing here. Oh yeah, I remember what we do. This is actually interesting. Now I probably should have used maybe not BB-8, especially not a Gear 11 BB-8. Maybe R2, maybe Finn would be better. I like Finn because of the heal, and I'm thinking right now why I'm taking so long is I'm deciding, do I really want to do this? Because I don't believe in this. Like, this is not really what I should be doing. But I want to give this a test. So I land the armor shred. We're going after Dooku. I think what I really needed is Daze. And I did not expect Droideka to take me out. But here's where this match gets interesting. We don't have BB-8 anymore. This is why Finn would have been nice. I'm trying to figure out how I want to play this. See, if we would have got the Daze to land on Dooku, things would have been better. But you can see here, we can't lose JTR. So even what looked like a match that was going terribly, it's kind of going all right. because we have an unkillable Ray. And I kind of wish I would have put maybe one of the Omicrons on. Because I did take him up to gear 12. He's not really better as an attacker, but I think it could have been nice with maybe another, maybe with an Ami. But now that Swallow is, or now that they're both below 50%, if it ends. But that was really interesting. Like, I don't think Swallow is going to be good on defense. I think opponents are just going to know how to be able to counter it. I might be able to surprise some people who don't know how to use it just because Swallow's a little less familiar. But on offense, the AI might just not play it right. Now with this run, we're just going to do Shaak Ti. Is the audio not working on this properly? You can see how low we're getting on the light side datacrons. This is what I was talking about earlier in the video. I'm going to probably re-roll some of my other set to switch from dark side to light side. Because we got several months now where we need to have the option. You can see I used Rex instead of Arc Trooper. It's just because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. It's not a big deal, but it was a mistake. Just gonna have to wait for aerial advantage. Going for a Droideka. I'm targeting Dooku when I have the middle ability from Shaak Ti, because since Shaak Ti's not attacking, he's not going to counter it. A little sloppy, but we were fine. Where's my notes? I made a few notes, just random stuff I want to talk about. Like, there's things I want to talk about with Andor. There's things I want to talk about. Just some recent things in nerd news. I like to touch on these from time to time. Okay, so Raddus obviously would be better if I didn't forget my Rex or didn't make that error, but Gas is a decent counter to Raddus. It might be more than what is needed. But it's safe. So I throw the armor shred, and then I decide that I think I want to take out Cassian first, because he's easier to take out, and if you take him out soon enough, it means he's no longer contributing to the upload for Raddus. Yeah, nothing too interesting here. This is more interesting because I used the wrong teams as a new challenge. There's the sacrifice, which really is helping me out. And they did get to the upload or the download. I don't remember which direction it is for Raddus. I think Raddus is uploading on the ship. Or he's downloading. No, they're uploading. What am I talking about? We're getting to a point now where cleaning him up is probably what I got to do. And I was going to do it with Maul, and then I realized, oh, Maul's on defense. So I think we, as I recall, I just go do the Hut Cartel. Because really my option is a GL. Do I want it to be JMK? Do I want it to be JML? I've tried other things in 3v3. So a lot of the 5v5 ones that work don't. Some of the weaker counters that work in 5v5, they don't work in 3v3. Like I've tried Troopers. Troopers work in Territory Wars, at least without the Datacron. Troopers don't work in 3v3. At least my Troopers don't. So we're doing the Hut Cartel. Is that what I did? I think I don't do this. What we do end up doing is my own Hut Cartel, is I believe what we ended up doing. One, because it's a decent challenge. Like you can see, we're using a 3, 5, and 7-star all Gear 11 characters. They do have the Zetas, but in terms of gear level, they do not match up. In terms of star level, they're not matching up. But it's interesting to see the results. So I put Bosch under stealth as quickly as possible, also for the bonus turn. Now I'm going for Hut's Favor, I think that thing's called. We got the contract off. It would be nice if we could taunt, but we got the shock up. We get very lucky there, not losing Skifflando or Tamtail Screech. I just want to call him Screech. I go back and forth. But that went great. Those weak Huts taking out those strong Huts. I mean, there's no synergy there, so it kind of makes sense, but you get an idea. Now I am deciding how I want to play the rest of this, because let me move my head out of the way. We got down there is the Melgus, and we got Starkiller. So that's really the tough choice that we're making. How am I countering these guys? But I know from experience when I try to cheap out on this Lord Vader, that ends up compromising the rest of the match, so we just go with JML. And you can see this is my last Datacron for Lightside. So we end up not using it because I know I don't really need it for this match and it's not going to help out really. I think we'll talk about nonsense in this one. There's not too much here. James Gunn leading DC. It was a big surprise. I like it. Like I have some issues with DC, and I'm not talking about just the movies. I'm talking about the comics in general. Like here's my background with DC. Huge Batman fan, but everyone's a Batman fan, so that doesn't really mean anything. I like Superman a lot. I have a lot of opinions on Superman. I think he's a difficult character to do right, but when people do him right, he's a great character. Problem is, most people don't do him right. I read a ton of Vertigo. I loved Swamp Thing, Hellblazer, but the stuff I didn't read was things like Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Justice League, Blue Beetle, all that stuff. I did read some of the Elseworld stuff, like Kingdom Come is excellent, but hopefully what James Gunn can do is more of what he has done with the Suicide Squad and what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's something that maybe will bring DC in a different direction, but I bring it up mostly because the Lysol, he said he thought it would happen, and I said in the Discord that I didn't think it was going to happen because I didn't think this was something that James Gunn was going to be interested in doing. I thought he'd just. I think, like, I love The Peacemaker. That show was great. I thought he would do more of that. I thought it seemed like TV was an opportunity that he enjoyed and would continue exploring. I don't know to what capacity he can do both jobs. So I'm interested to see what directions it takes. I mean, James Gunn is also a lot older now. Maybe just he's getting ready for the next phase of his career. But I hope we get to continue to see his voice in film and TV, because other people can't do it. Here's something that's interesting. There's a movie called The Belko Experiment that he wrote. And the movie is interesting for... It's an interesting script, and I wish he would have made it, because of the movie... Like, it's another, like, kind of Squid Game-esque, where it's like a deadly game, and I've talked about how I love that trope. Anything that is a deadly game thing I watch, which is why when I saw the trailer for Belko Experiment, I was all about watching it. But it's played too seriously, the movie. It's violent and gory, and you can tell the script was funny, and the James Gunn comedic voice that you can see in some of his other movies, like Slither and like Tromeo and Juliet, that stuff is missing from Belko Experiment. He's just the wrong director. And so just because James Gunn's behind the scenes being involved doesn't mean that other writers and directors are going to be able to execute on the voice. Alright, JMK up against Melgus, just because this is a nice, reliable one. I think there's a match in there that the Radis Iden, it's not even worth commenting on. We've talked a lot about it in the past. We'll sit with proper posture. And I guess somewhat related, the other thing in my notes here. Okay, so here's me about to do something, and then I realize, oh, I have a Vader Datacron. I don't need to use Starkiller. I can just use Vader because this Datacron is amazing. I'm glad it's not going to be in existence forever. I'm fine that we have something OP for just a few months. And the players who are willing to work for it get to benefit. And that's fine. So we take advantage. It's a little bit harder to use in 3v3 because you don't have enough characters to get the cooldowns, and I'm just kind of counting things out, making sure I don't mess this up. Because you can just see how quickly we're taking out characters, but there's still protection around. I just want to make sure we're to a point where my saber throws work. And we're fine. What do we got next? Oh, let me move my head out of the way so you can see the team that I'm exploring. This is this weird team. I'm just reminding myself what the abilities are. So we have this Aura Singh team here with Zam. Because what I want to do here is this. I want to use the Savage on me. It's a Gear 12 Savage. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a debuff over on Gamu that was going to mess this up. Now, let's see, this is going to take a little bit of time. At Gear 12, he doesn't really have great offense, and what I'm a little bit concerned about is the recovery that they have. I think from the Zamami is going to outpace the damage that Savage can do. This is the taunt is part of it, but also the Zamami is why I want to focus on Gamu, is because he's not a bounty hunter, and I know he's not going to be benefiting from that Omicron. So just focusing, get him down to the yellow. Now we can overpower. And gone. We're going to have to deal with this stealth. But really nothing in these kits are really that much of a problem. It's really just a question of, will my offense outpace any recovery that they have? And it looks to be the case. That it's not something that we got to worry about. The bigger concern is the stealth is preventing me from focusing down on who I want to focus on, which is Zam. Like, Zam's really the win condition in a match like this. Yeah, I love this Omicron. I love Savage. Just a character that I like, partly because he's a Sith, partly because Clancy Brown does the voice, and I'm a Clancy Brown fan. Now we got Django and Shaak Ti. I think we're going to head to the back wall and see what my other options are. Or I guess we're going to do Shaak Ti. Oh, you know what? Why we're doing Shaak Ti? It's because I remember I've got Inquisitors. And with Inquisitors, we can at least do a little bit of testing here. We got 5th Brother, 7th Sister, 9th. This is my preferred version for the Inquisitors, because what I found is you need 9th Sister to tank, and you need 7th Sister to keep 9th Sister alive, because 9th Sister on her own doesn't really have enough doesn't have any recovery, and you need the recovery from 7th Sister. Otherwise, like, she's not a tank that can really work that great on her own, independent of other characters. She needs support. Now, I probably should have just focused on 5. Well, I hit Shaak Ti because I wanted to bring the Purge over there, because 5's already had 5 stacks. But now I'm being indecisive about who I want to attack. And I don't know if we could have prevented that from happening. Maybe it was inevitable. But we lose 9th Sister to the aerial advantage. Or else that's fine. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, we got a few things I want to touch on. Keanu Reeves, Constantine. That movie, I don't know, I think maybe I need to revisit that movie. It's been a long time. And we all love Keanu. But I think Keanu his casting comes down to an interesting condition of, is he appropriate for the character? And whether or not the comic portrayal of that character is the one that we should have, does it need to have? Because in the comics, he's basically Sting. And I think there was a show on NBC 5 to 10 years ago that had a comic accurate portrayal, and it's fine. It's not the casting that's the issue in that show. It was just written in a way that was kind of formulaic and boring and very network TV. I kind of wish it would have been more like Supernatural. If it was basically Supernatural with Constantine, I think it would have been fine. Because I think Supernatural does everything that show was doing, but better. But Keanu coming back, I think that maybe actually the age of Keanu is actually going to help that portrayal. Because the movie itself I thought it was forgettable. I know it has some fans. But I know there's a lot of people that want comic accurate portrayals, and Keanu's not one. But I mean, Keanu is great in many things. All right, we're going. I don't know. I'm fine with it. I'm happy with it. Trey this is a good counter, except We are so mismatched on gear that is a little worrisome. You can see how close to death we came a couple times. Like, Dash is a scary guy. But we get to Held by Hatred, so we are probably good. Annihilate Dash, get rid of him so he can't do any more damage, and we're good now. I'm basically auto from here. I don't know if I did. Other thing I want to talk about Andor, but I think a little bit more tangentially. Not really specifically about the episodes, more about the show in general. Because I've just been thinking a lot about how it hasn't really caught on. I think that's going to change. I think I've talked about this in other videos, but I'm expecting like a Game of Thrones effect with Andor, where partly because I think some fans were pulled away by Rings of Power and House of Dragon, I think they will get caught up on Andor. I think I've seen that even in the Discord, that some players and fans of the channel have just recently started watching Andor and getting caught up. I think that's an element of what will be happening, and I think with Game of Thrones, what happened was no one was really watching Season 1. And then Season 1 completed, everyone started hearing about it, the word of mouth spread, people got caught up and fell in love with the show. I'm expecting that's going to be happening with Andor. I think it's going to spread because it's just a show that's good in general. It's objectively good by any metric and should be considered as one of the top shows of the year. Not top sci-fi show or fantasy show or nerd culture show, just top show. It is that good. And it's what I want from these kinds of shows. But the larger point I'm making about that is it's going to start pulling in people who are not sci-fi fans, who are not Star Wars fans, and they're going to be watching it because it's just that worthwhile of watching. But I'm wondering that maybe one of the aspects of why some people haven't responded to the show in the same way is I think we're some people like different things in Star Wars, and that's fine. Like, I'm not a Jedi person, but there are some people who love that Jedi stuff. There are people who love the hero's journey aspects of Star Wars, of like, and the good versus evil. And I think that is the same type of thing like Lord of the Rings, like that high fantasy stuff. Like, Star Wars in its structure is high fantasy. And I think the fans who are attracted to those aspects, it might be harder to get on board with a show like Andor. This is me testing out these droids, getting a feel for them. Trying to get Shock over there. But these are 3-star droids. I did put the Zetas on them this time. And you definitely, I mean, I always knew you had to put the Zetas on, but I wanted to try them out. So you can check out last week's videos if you want to see what they look like without the Zetas. It's bad. They were basically useless. That third ability, that's a Zeta ability. You don't even have that ability if you don't have the Zetas on. You can see it's just basically a disaster. Now, what I was starting to get to is, like, for me as a Star Wars fan, what I was into is I was into bounty hunters. I was into the scoundrel stuff. I liked the different worlds. Like, I liked Bespin and Dagobah and seeing all these different planets and set pieces. I liked the ships. I liked the Sith. But not the dichotomy of Sith and Jedi, but just these Sith as these villains in the background who are being these puppet masters. Okay, so Hondo here, I did put the Omicron on. So this is my first time testing out that Omicron. Hondo, I'm still figuring out. He's going to do perfectly fine here. He's already very clearly an excellent character, but still figuring it all out. Yeah. So you can see as he's getting better and better as we get stacks of whatever that's called, like the capture stuff. The damage output is increasing and we're getting more control. We're going to lose L3. Probably should have hit Daka before, but I didn't notice. That air is probably going to cost me Kira. Yeah, there goes Kira. You can see they're not really doing any damage to me, so the issue, if I have any chance of, or any risk of losing, it's going to be stuns. Yep. Yeah, so do we do interesting things here? I'm trying to remember how I handled this Django team. This isn't interesting. I just decided to throw whatever strong stuff I have left. So we're just going to talk about the nonsense, go back to that. Because I grew up as more of a Star Trek fan, because I think what attracted to me was more of the hard sci-fi stuff, the bureaucracy of it all, the societal commentary. Those are the things I like in sci-fi and in a lot of genre stuff. The fantasy elements of Star Wars I was less interested in, and so I think that's part of the reason why a fan like me just revels in Andor. Just the things, the depths of the writing, the bureaucracy, how the Empire functions on the ground, how rebels function on the ground, what Coruscant looks like, how people are reacting to that level of oppression. Like, all of that is very interesting to me. Like, that's what I've always wanted to see more of from Star Wars. And I think, and again, like, it's not valid or invalid, because for me, it's the same kind of dichotomy between like Marvel and DC, which we were somewhat alluding to, because that's similar to how those two properties are functioning. Like, Marvel's has always been more streets on the ground, real people functioning as superheroes. Like, that's how those characters were envisioned to begin with. You had the Fantastic Four being a family with powers. You had Spider-Man being an outcast kid with powers, trying to survive with no money and trying to get by and struggle, and just financially trying to find a way to support his Aunt May and himself, while also just dealing with the realities of being a high school student. And you have those elements of those properties. Like, you have the X-Men dealing with concepts of racism and doing that through allegory. And what you had in DC is you have gods and monsters, monsters and men. Like, and you can see this in like the Jeff Johns Justice League runs. And I think it's why I always found the Justice League less interesting for myself, is it's the good versus evil stuff that, for me, just never captured my interest on the same level. And that's not to say it's not valid or invalid. It's because we have tons of media that cover it. It's just has always been less interesting to me. But I think that's also part of what Star Wars was exploring through the movies and what Andor is not exploring. So in that sense, it's a different kind of Star Wars. I'll say all that to say that I'm kind of understanding why maybe it hasn't found the same audience as some of the other Star Wars shows has. And I think there's also a big element of there's just so many other shows going on and no one could keep up. Like, what I did is I stopped watching House of the Dragon. I stopped watching Rings of Power. Andor got all my attention. It's what I wanted. That other people just put off Andor until the shows were done. Yeah, this is all standard stuff. This is why I'm just talking over it instead of narrating it, because we all know how to handle these fights now. And if you don't, I talk about it in basically every video. I think the only other thing to talk about is I don't even know when it was. I should probably label these videos so I could go back and figure out which ones I talk about different things on. But, like, I've talked about chicken sandwiches because I was very much into the chicken sandwich wars and gave a lot of opinions. And I started shifting to what I wanted to know all the base level burgers at fast food places. And I talked about this in a previous video where I was landing. What I've been doing since then is revisiting a lot of them, exploring a few more, and really trying to carve out where I rank and rate all these different base level burgers. And really what I mean is the sub $3 burger. So that kind of eliminates a Shake Shack. In-N-Out's right on the line, I think, but we're still way in the middle of this process. But through revisiting these things and just kind of recalibrating, I think I had McDonald's kind of in the middle. Wendy's was a little lower. I've brought Wendy's back up because Wendy's I historically really liked. I think maybe some of the ingredients have lowered, but they get a lot of points for the bread and some of the other ingredients. I think the meat's a little bland. I think I gave Burger King too high of a rating because here's my reassessed evaluation of the Burger King. The flame broiledness, that's a scam. It's a trick. The flame broiledness is the only flavor. It is covering up the fact that the meat is, there's no taste, no meat flavor. If you really just sit with that flame broiledness, you just realize, oh, your meat sucks. So and the surprise contender is still a surprise contender, Jack in the Box. Their bread's no good, and there's other issues with it, but they have the most flavorful meat. It is the most beefy tasting of the burgers. And those are really the only ones I've revisited at this point. So we got a lot more testing to do. Because those are the ones that are everywhere and easy for me to stop at. We're going to have to drive out of the way to do some additional testing. You can see right here is where my opponent stopped. I'm going to have to pull up BlueStacks and show you the results of this match. We're going to tack it on right here. Let's see, we finished this round with a win. I think we're on a 4-game win streak right now. We'll see if we can keep that alive. Let me show you how the defense performed. Looks like Scrooge Jones will be the next opponent. You can see my defense held back territory. We'll do a quick glance, see if anything. CLS here getting me a hold. Up top is what we really need to pay attention to. We have the bounty hunters still standing, preventing this territory from getting cleared. And that's why I said pay attention to this Datacron. This might be a fluke, it might just be this opponent, but it's something we're going to be paying attention to for the rest of this week. And possibly the rest of the season. Maybe this is one of the Datacrons that is going to be working. Because I think if you don't have Jabba, you probably still have a bounty hunter squad you can put together. And this Datacron standing for 4 and preventing a full clear. That's a great result. We will wrap it up there. We are going to have a much heavier end to this month. I know I've been promising getting some videos out for a while. It has been a busy couple months where we will be transitioning into a much more heavily focused range to end out the year. So thank you for being patient with all that as I handle things behind the scenes. We will be moving forward. This channel will be around for a long time. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.